That's James's deck dinner for today. And it's, you can hear the pups are really wanting that sausage. I'm very excited about it. But they're not going to get it right now. They're just going to have to wait. And, so you can get the soundtrack of baby dogs.
Dogs
being
whimpering.
babyish, yeah.
Yep.
And you'll notice there's a little piece of that sausage missing because we saw the cutest dog.
Well, not cuter than ours, but pretty close. It's a Pomeranian.
Oh, it was cute. It looked like a teddy bear.
And it was with some people from Mérida. I believe it's from the Yucatan, southern part of Mexico. And the folks might have been part Mayan and stuff like that. So I was telling them that I study a little bit of Totonacan, and that's more in eastern central Mexico by a place called Veracruz.
Very upset.
And, but I told them that...
Can I throw a couple of these at the dogs?
Oh, sure. Exactly.
Okay. Because they're very upset. Okay. Take that and go. Take it and go. Oh, Elvis will take it from you if you don't go. Okay.
Anyway, it was about 5 years ago. Yeah, 4 years ago. This year I turned 65. I studied a little bit of Yucatec Mayan at university from a native speaker. She started learning it when she was an adult, when she was 18 according to her account, and but she'd done a good enough job so that she qualified to come up here, i.e. Lethbridge, Alberta.
I ate 9 pancakes. It's mostly due to the Saskatoon compote that they made. It's fantastic.
Yep.
It was made by this one was put on by the college and university.
And it was held at the CASA Grande. Well, they don't call it Grande, but it is a big place.
It is big.
What does CASA stand for? It's some sort of arts thing, right?
I don't know.
Central Arts of Southern Alberta.
Yeah, Southern Alberta Arts. Probably. I don't know what the C is.
Yeah, who knows? Comprehensive?
I don't know. Community?
Anyway, so you'll probably want to sign off while I chow down on this.
Why?
Okay, because
aren't you going to talk about the book?
Okay, I won't hold them up then because I've got syrup all over my hands.
You've already hold them up for people and they know what you're talking about.
Okay, so one is called Kremlin Conspiracy. I finished that yesterday morning, and it's written by E. Howard Hunt, now very much dead, and thank heavens he deserved to die. Not that he's that bad a writer. There's some bad writers that you could joke deserve to die, but he was a bad person. And the other is something I've refinished. I finished it first in 2017, and I've been covering it, previewing, reviewing it as I've gone through it a second time. So it's about 640 pages of quite dense material. It's called Contract on America, and it's written by a guy called David E. Scheim, I think it is. Let's say David Scheim. And I just finished that one this morning. And that there's a lot of small print in that one, lots and lots of small print. So that's quite an achievement just to go through it once. But now, 6 years or so after, a little more than 6 years after finishing the first time, I finished up a second time. And it makes for fairly gruesome reading. And one of the things they document quite well is why Jack Ruby killed Lee Harvey Oswald. And it's the way the mafia operates. It's an open conspiracy. It's in many ways more open than the communist conspiracy. In other words, you know that they're committing all sorts of crimes, including murder, and you don't want to testify against them because you stand a chance of yourself being murdered. But they will murder you, even when murder is not involved. If you're going to testify against them for peddling narcotics, or doing prostitution, or doing crooked gambling, or gambling where it's illegal, stuff like that, they will kill you. They do not want to spend time in jail, and they will just kill you. No, they don't kill everyone necessarily, but they will kill however many it takes to get the message through to possible witnesses that you don't want to take the chance of being the one who gets the second person to get murdered. The other thing that they do is they just beat people to a pulp. They'll take, after newspaper reporters and stuff like that, union members who don't want them moving into unions the way they have the Teamsters in the United States, and they will just beat people to within an inch of their life. Just beat them to a bloody pulp. I'm not exaggerating. And that's the way they operate. And so why did they have Lee Harvey Oswald killed? They did not want it to come to trial, because when you have a trial, then you get witnesses. Some people actually take it seriously when they have to swear on a Bible or whatever that they're going to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or whatever they're required to say. And they wanted to avoid that like the plague, and they did. Now, there were two different real cover-ups. There were 3 conspiracies, but 2 cover-ups. You can tell the mafia cover-up because it involved the threat of violence and actual killing. That's the way the mafia operates. The other stuff was more subtle. There would be threats of possible danger or stuff like that. Getting visited by men, the Men in Black or something like that. Isn't that supposed to be about
FBI?
Well, exactly right. But the men, you'd be visited by FBI agents, maybe some CIA agents doing what they're not supposed to be doing, which is operating domestically, that is, in the United States. They're supposed to operate on foreign territory. And various sorts of things like that, like it's not good for the country for you to be giving away secrets, all this sort of stuff. So the powers that be were interested in covering up the original conspiracy. The original conspiracy was supposed to look, and it did look, it does look like, because it was, that there were several shooters, that there was active long-term planning to kill John F. Kennedy. But the original conspiracy was supposed to look like another conspiracy, a conspiracy by left-wingers, a conspiracy of, let's say, a combination of the Soviets and particularly the Cubans to whack John F. Kennedy. And what these conspirators were hoping was that that would be enough to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. They killed off John F. Kennedy because he was a left-winger, and because he'd pulled the plug on the Bay of Pigs, and a variety of different things. And of course, from the mafia point of view, he was going after them along with his brother, the Attorney General, that is the head of the justice system and also the head of the FBI. In the United States, it's Robert Kennedy. They wanted them dead. And they got both of them dead eventually. Took them a little while longer with Robert Kennedy, but they got both of them dead. But it was the mafia that killed off Robert Kennedy. I don't think the Cubans were terribly interested. I don't think rogue elements in the CIA were terribly interested in Robert Kennedy. But a combination of nasty swill of those 3 elements. I won't call them necessarily right-wing Cubans, Cuban refugees, particularly right-wing refugees from Castro, the mafia, particularly folks who were refugees from the Havana casinos that had been shut down by Castro, and rogue elements in the CIA who felt betrayed by Kennedy and him pulling the plug on the Bay of Pigs invasion. The poster puke for that was E. Howard Hunt. Like he was involved with the Bay of Pigs, and he was PO'd that Kennedy refused to send in reinforcements. Unlike Eisenhower, like you got all sorts of left-wings. Eisenhower's awesome, so much better than Kennedy. And then the Americans were awful for taking out Guatemala and Arbenz and whatever.
Okay, but you said this is fiction.
Yeah.
And you said that this explains how the mafia works?
No.
Oh, you're talking about a different book then?
Contract on America. Yeah.
Oh. This book.
Okay, so it's about the mafia, and what it doesn't explain very well is how the Cubans, dissident Cubans, refugee Cubans were involved.
Okay, so you're not reviewing this book, this fiction book?
No, right now.
Okay.
I just the second one I mentioned was Contract on America, and but the E. Howard Hunt thing is related. There's hardly any entries on E. Howard Hunt, and yet there is a woman who risked her life. Hopefully she survived. Who came out, and her she didn't have to do this. It was Mark Lane was defending a guy who'd accused E. Howard Hunt of being involved in the assassination of JFK, and JFK sued this guy, who is actually the magazine that published it, as I recall, maybe Liberty Lobby or something like that, and for libel. And so Mark Lane had E. Howard Hunt say, "Have you got a alibi for the 22nd of November, 1963?" So this was several years later. It might have been in the 70s actually, when this came to trial. So Mark Lane had written one of the first books exposing the cover-ups, really. You would have seen it. I think it's just one cover-up. In 1966, very early. It's called Rush to Judgment. And I guess he was a lawyer and stuff like that. Anyway, he's defending Liberty Lobby, and he got hold of this witness. It was a secret witness, and I think they hadn't even mentioned that this woman was going to be testifying. But he got Howard Hunt to say, "I have a alibi for the 22nd December. I was home with my kids." I presume that was in Washington, D.C., or the general area. And then Mark Lane just says in passing, "How about the 21st? No, 21st. And E. Howard Hunt was a Ivy League graduate, I think a graduate, went to Brown University, not the most prestigious Ivy League university in the world, but maybe top 20 in the United States. I don't know what he studied, presumably something like history, geography, political science, or whatever. And he actually shows a reasonable amount of learning. It's surprising. He probably understands or understood things like history and geography, at least in the bare bones of it, better than my brother was at university. Well, he's been an instructor and has a PhD and all this sort of stuff. And presumably E. Howard Hunt really had a BA, but you know, he's jumping around from Barcelona to Moscow to as I recall, London, the United States, just back and forth. He seems to have a feel for the geography. I get the feeling he snuck into Soviet Union. This thing was published in 1985. Anyway, Mark Lane got him to do that, and he got E. Howard Hunt up on the witness stand. And that's what stupid people do when they're guilty. They get up on the witness stand because they think they're smarter than everyone else, right? Mm-hmm. At least E. Howard Hunt would. Here he is with his Ivy League education and, you know, like a long and strong background in the CIA, and he says, imagine that. You know, it's now his alibi was he was at home with his family. Imagine that. Imagine what it's like. I have my kids coming to me and saying, "Dad, did you do it?" And Mark Lane says, "That's when I knew I had him." Because he's saying, the people who are giving the alibi are asking him, "Dad, are you guilty?" You see how the guy just was yapping. He was way too smart for his own good. But it got better than that, because all of a sudden there's this witness that they've been hiding, and she's on the witness stand, and she says, "The 21st of November." See how Mark Lane set up E. Howard Hunt? He was saying, he gave them the little misdirect. Where were you on the 22nd? And then he just says, "Can you account for where you were on the 21st? Just casually. No alibi for then. And the woman says, "On the 21st. You see, there was an attempt. We didn't find out about this until quite recently, maybe in the 90s. There was an attempt, it didn't come to fruition, on Kennedy's life in Florida on the 18th of November. I believe it was the 18th of November. You can check it up. And all of a sudden, that didn't work out. They tried to take him out in Chicago. I think it was the 9th of November, quite a bit earlier. Now they got 4 days to make it from Florida to Dallas and get stuff set up. And this woman was in a vehicle with E. Howard Hunt, I believe it was Frank Sturgis, and one or two other folks. And in the trunk, they were going to Dallas, in the trunk was all sorts of guns and ammo. So when this guy is talking about, "Oh, it's just the mafia did it," no way. There were rogue elements in the CIA involved, and there were definitely Cubans involved. Frank Sturgis is not his real name, or wasn't. Hopefully he's seriously dead now. He wouldn't have died of embarrassment, because after he helped whack Kennedy, several years later he was involved with Watergate. So less than 10 years later he's involved with the Watergate break-ins. I think his name was Frank Fiorini, and Frank would probably be Francisco or something like that. So Frank Sturgis, so he was, I believe, a Cuban, and I think he was actually, Castro took a while, maybe a year and a half. He got rid of a lot of the mafia guys in the casinos in Havana, but he let them run, and I think his, kind of like his director of gambling was Frank Sturgis. These folks aren't nothing. Understand, the woman who blew the whistle on Frank Sturgis and E. Howard Hunt, she's part of history. She's just not someone they scraped up off the street. Yeah, she's Spanish, but she was one of Castro's mistresses.
Hey, baby.
Wake up and smell the coffee, okay?
Are you wondering what James is eating? Yeah.
You are, eh? So is that a...
yeah, that's the red-breasted nuthatch.
Nuthatch.
Who's been coming
There we
to
go.
sit with us.
That's as friendly as I've seen any nuthatch.
Yeah, he's a sweet little guy. Or she, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It's almost on her shoulder. In some ways, it's less shy than most of the chickadees.
Well, so far that bird hasn't thought that your meal is better than what I'm giving him, so he hasn't rated any of your food yet.
He's probably fascinated about the
Saskatoon.
He looks. Yeah, exactly.
He has wondered about what you're eating.
Anyway, how much time we got?
Oh, you have 10 minutes.
10 minutes, that's what it's for. Okay, so we'll talk about E. Howard Hunt. The cover's hilarious. It's got missiles in place of the towers that are on the...
Oh, I hadn't even noticed that.
Yeah, check it out.
It's pretty good.
It's fairly artistically done, maybe a little too subtle. Of course, it would have been done in hardcover, presumably original, and the format would have been larger. Maybe it would have been a little bit more obvious. So the closest, well, did I say missiles, rockets, or whatever? The closest one, I think, is replacing the Spassky Tower, maybe. What does Spassky mean? Salvation or Savior Tower or something like that. Yeah, maybe I got it wrong. Who cares? Anyway, I kind of care. All right, but yeah, you can see what it is. Yeah. So they've got these towers. One has a big clock on it.
It is.
So it's an old fort, kind of like in the middle of Moscow. and with walls around it. And the important stuff is actually outside of the...
So this is the one you're talking about now, then?
Yeah, exactly right.
Okay,
Kremlin
I'll switch
Conspiracy.
books on you.
So it is hilarious. I mean, he has bad people, some bad people. He has a guy who's a pacifist, but he's getting money from the Russians, and he's having demonstrations all over the place. And this is a period leading up to 1985 where there are all sorts of no nukes demonstrations and all this sort of stuff. And I was at some of them. You know, in many ways I was a useful idiot. But you know, I can only remain idiotic so long. I actually read stuff and so on and so forth. And the principal Swedes were depending on the Americans, spending a lot of money on arms and stuff like that, and having soldiers stationed in Germany and other places, but particularly Germany, to keep the Soviets, you know, from crushing down the Swedes. And guess what? When the Soviets took over Sweden, they would have had, the Swedes would have no longer been pacifists. They wouldn't have been allowed to be, and stuff like that. So, and you know, the Swedes, yeah, I'm sure there's some nice principled Swedes and stuff like that, but you know, one of these days I want to do a study on the role they played in helping wipe out the Jews, because all the armaments that the Germans used to keep the Russians from counterattacking, to keep the Americans from coming through France lickety-split as fast as possible, all of those armaments allowed Hitler that much more time to kill off Jews and gypsies and also homosexuals and things like that. And some of the best iron ore in the world came from Sweden, the northern part of Sweden, the kind of like ground zero for the mining of that ore is a place called Kiruna, way up in the northern part of Sweden. Look it up if you don't believe me. And from what I can tell, the Swedes, if they'd been neutral, they would have said, we're trading with nobody, especially you Nazis. But apparently they were supplying them up let's say the Yazoo River. There is such a river. Look it up. You'll find it goes into the Mississippi, and it's located in the state of Mississippi. So up the Yazoo River. But I could be wrong, in which case I kind of apologize to the Swedes. But they should have actually been fighting the Nazis. Really, they should have been. I mean, if you believe in peace, you actually shut the Nazis down and impose peace on them, because oh, look at the Swedes, they're so peaceful with us. Gosh, they're so nice. Let's be peaceful too. Yeah, it doesn't work out that way. I'm sorry. Anyway, so this thing, he takes on too much. He's like a puppet master, and he needs octopus arms. You know, there are too many puppets. He's manipulating too many characters. He doesn't understand character well enough. So you're going, which one is this? Is this the Israeli agent or the American agent?
Oh, so
or the Russian
this
agent?
book would have needed to be way thicker so that he could actually develop the characters in time, so that you could
I
tell
don't think
them
he'd be
apart.
capable of developing.
Okay.
I think he's the kind of guy who sees other people as automatons. You know,
Oh,
I don't like John F. Kennedy. Let's wipe him out.
Yeah.
Huh? I don't care if his wife's there. Poor Jackie Kennedy. It's described somewhere.
Well, a lot of authors, it's just like aspects of themselves. It's like every character is just a different them, you know.
Or kind of like an alter ego or something like that, like an enemy or else a friend, them, or
it's very hard
something
to
else.
tell
But,
characters
yeah,
apart
like,
that way, because they just think everybody is exactly like them somehow or something. I don't know.
Having Jackie Kennedy, Jack Kennedy wiped out right there in his wife's lap. You know, it's so sad. I never realized this detail. They get to the hospital. They're driving like 160 kilometers an hour. It's like 100 miles an hour. Just zoom. It was a V8 engine. I didn't realize it could go that fast. Anyway, the guy mad at it, and they get to the hospital, and they're saying, one of the guys, I think it's the guy who's responsible for taking care of her own Secret Service agent. I think it was Clint Hill. They said, or it might have been some of Kennedy's aides. They're saying we gotta take him in to get operated on and stuff like that. And she says he's dead. He's dead. Like almost all of his brain was blown out. She knew, and she said, "I just want to kind of cuddle with him." E. Howard Hunt, wherever you are, you're in the 9th. No, you're the 10th circle of hell. You're one of the briquettes that's burning the other people. You stupid asshole. You stupid SOB. Anyway, you can see, again, like he's jumping around from place to place to place. He knows the places, but it's just like too jumpy. It's hard to follow. And there are two main lines of plot. I mean, they're trying to get some four Jewish people out of the Soviet Union. It still existed back then. I guess it's back again. In some ways worse than it was in the 80s. And then they're trying to get a couple of dissidents out, or a dissident and a relative out. They're not related. So it doesn't make sense that the two things are tied together. It just makes it more complicated. That's one of the reasons why I say the guy's like a puppeteer who needs to have 8 tentacles to keep all the stuff going, and he just doesn't have the talent. That's the way it goes. But I have to say that once I kind of got into it, I finished it up fairly quickly. It was reasonably gripping and stuff like that. I don't want to give away the ending, but you might find it exciting and so on and so forth. So he should have stuck to writing, you know, and that sort of stuff, and not writing history on his own. Because, well, with the help of some other people. But he was trying to rewrite history. And he did. You know, like things weren't better after JFK, and the mafia, of course, got rid of, with the help of E. Howard, got rid of JFK, and then they moved on to bigger and worse things. In other words, taking out Robert Kennedy was way more serious, because John F. Kennedy was followed by Lyndon Baines Johnson, who was, from what I can tell, a liberal. And but the big trouble is, Robert Kennedy, who almost surely would have won the election in 1968, was followed by, in a certain sense, Richard Nixon, who was in the pockets of the mafia. Understand, all you folks are strutting around saying, oh man, the mafia won the election in 1960 for JFK. You know, in Illinois, wow, it was so close. It was close in California. And check out B.B. Rebozo. And what was his name? Morris Chotiner? Southern California Mafia. The Southern California Mafia just as likely stole the election in California for Nixon. So it's mafia versus mafia. The difference is JFK went after the mafia. It was his dad who was arranging for him to get elected. He went after the mafia, and he paid for it with his life. Richard Nixon was in bed with the mafia, and I'm not saying what he was doing in bed or what they were doing to him. It was an absolute criminal sleazeball. How much time?
10 seconds.
There we go. Take care, folks.